Okay, today we are in South Kilburn, which is a large housing estate in Kilburn, in the London borough of Brent. Typical of brutalist 1960s design of public housing in the United Kingdom, it is characterized by high density housing in low-rise flats and 11 concrete tower blocks. It was approved in 1959 and extended in 1963. This scheme was further developed in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Redevelopment occurred during the 2010s. The population is predominantly Afro-Caribbean. South Kilburn has long been plagued by crime, the streets and blocks that characterize the dense sprawl of housing being the site of numerous shootings and drug trade controlled by various gangs. In the 1980s, when the war on drugs began within the northwest London area, many Yarding gang members that came to northwest London would take refuge in the borough of Brent. Areas within the borough had a spike in gang culture. When redevelopment happened on the Stonebridge estate, many gang members would move to South Kilburn, which ultimately strengthened the ties between the two areas. Stephen Graham was a made man these times. Born and raised in Kilburn, he spent his heydays running around northwest London, back when Stonebridge, Kilburn and Church Road were all linked. He was a key figure in the criminal underworld and linked to various violent incidents, including murder, while being heavily involved in organised crime. At only 14 years old, Stephen and his mates were known as the Kick-Off Head Crew, notorious for their brutal acts of violence. The police wanted him behind bars badly. They attempted to get him on a robbery charge he didn't commit. Luckily for him, at the time of the robbery, he was at a police ID parade in Brixton, so the police effectively became his alibi. After his mother found out, she sent him back to Jamaica to keep him away from the police. In current times, Stephen Graham is an activist in the community to help stop youth violence. Now, I don't know too much about the 1990s, but what I've gathered is that there were a lot of gang members roaming the estate, some of which were real money makers. One prominent name that was infamous in the state was Zeno, and an individual who had a notorious reputation in the area. Another individual who went by the street name Looney was well feared. He was known for robbing and kidnapping high-profile gang members within the borough of Brent. He was also known for wearing brown shoes, and some people thought it gave him magic powers similar to the cartoon William Wish Wellington. Now, around the late 90s to early 2000s, a group of olders and youngers will make a name for themselves in the South Kilburn estate. The leading figure was a gangster by the name of MG. Other members included Tex, P, E1, MK, Ryder, Gotti, Nasty, Justo, his two younger bros Smalls and Tank, Young Ricks, Cowboy, Miniman, Stormtrooper, Diesel, etc. Now, Tex was originally from the Stonebridge Park estate. In 2001, when Stonebridge was being gentrified, he moved to South Kilburn and practically took it over, becoming a lead figure along with MG. Now, on the 15th of August 1999, at a flat at 16 Dickens House, Kilburn, a man known as O'Neill Anthony Leila was shot at about 3 AM in a flat whilst attending a party, and afterwards staggered out onto the second floor balcony and tried to escape, but was chased and shot dead as he lay on the ground. Two men with their faces covered to varying degrees with only their eyes showing entered the flat and shot him in cold blood. The men were seen to flee afterward. It was thought that his killer had been a young black youth who may have been held by an accomplice. O'Neill Leila was taken to Northwick Park Hospital, where his post-mortem found that he died from gunshots to the head. The police said they came up against a wall of silence during their investigations. Now, the gun that was used to kill him was later traced to a man that had previously given 16 Dickens House as his address when he had been arrested some weeks before the murder. The man and two other men were arrested in relation to O'Neill Leila's murder, but they all either denied it or made no comment in interviews. It was noted that the police said that they had the intelligence that suggested that they had been in the area at the time and knew that one of them had recently been involved in an altercation with O'Neill Leila. The investigation into his murder was called Operation Powerstock. This was a common theme in South Kilburn. Lots of murders went unsolved. Now, C Biz, also known as Cowboy, was born on the 8th of October 1986. C Biz was originally from out of town before he moved to South Kilburn. He actually came from a rich family, but still managed to find himself in the streets. C Biz went to St. Augustine School with the likes of Tyke and Justo. C Biz spent his first years on the block out of the way. In his own words, "I couldn't just walk up to the block like they were real life gangsters. It was crazy over there. When you're walking through, you gotta keep your head straight and make sure you look innocent and keep it moving." However, after years went by, he got familiar with them. One of the oldest, known as Armani, would also take C Biz's girl. He learned the hard way that being hood rich attracts the females. Now, growing up in a block, C Biz's friend had a father who would call C Biz Cowboy. The same friend would eventually also start calling him Cowboy. One day he was playing basketball with C Biz, where he would say, "Easy Cowboy." Armani would overhear this and think it was his name, so also started calling him it. Eventually the name Cowboy would stick. After year 11, at the age of 15, the period where you're really starting to think about what you're going to pursue in life, C Biz's age mates were searching for colleges and sixth forms to attend. It is this period where he felt disillusioned with life and led astray. He became involved in the streets. Now, there was a top boy from South Kilburn, a drug dealer who had the money, women, power and respect. He was known for flexing his big bikes and Toyota MR2. He was the center of attention on the estate. Now, one day he needed a favor. He was recently released from prison and was on an electronic tag. Despite not being confident he could do it, C Biz agreed due to how the opportunity would benefit him in the long run. Long story short, C Biz accomplished the task handed to him and developed a business relationship with him. Now, over time he went through the stages of stashing money in his socks, to then having to iron the notes due to them being crumbled, to then wrapping it in foil, to finally placing it all in a shoebox. Now, one early morning before 10 PM, C Biz managed to make £5,000 from his dealings. It amazed his friend Justo to the point that he thought it must have been money he had already stacked up. Justo was convinced until the end of the day, where C Biz made another £5,000. Justo helped him count up all the money at C Biz's house. It was at this moment that Justo wanted in on the game. Now, in the 90s, South Kilburn and Mozart Estate were united. There even used to be a bridge that connected both of the estates. They were known as the Mozart Mexicans. Lead figures included Double OG, Big Mecca and Ricky Platts. Double OG is the father of Little Dots, G Dots and Woo. Mozart was known as Crack City. Both estates would be making big money from their dealing, but when the new era, the late 90s to early 2000s, both estates would fall out due to money issues and vying for control. Now, C Biz along with his South Kilburn goons would have issues with the Press Road crew. After the fall of Press Road Route Diney, an individual known as Magic took over the gang as the new leading figurehead. Press Road would start applying pressure on South Kilburn. Magic led the charge and would end up robbing C Biz for his chain. Press Road crew were taxing them and even kidnapping South Kilburn members back in 2005. Now, sooner or later, South Kilburn members would respond to all the violations. On the 24th of September 2006, in the early morning, allegedly South Kilburn members went to the Scala nightclub in King's Cross looking for Magic. A KGB member, KGB standing for Kensal Green Boys, known as Paro, real name Daniel Ross, was hit in the head and he collapsed to the ground as hundreds of people fled the club by the fire exit. By the time the police arrived in response to a 999 call around 3:45 AM, most of the people there that night, including Daniel's friends, had left. One of the few remaining was a female stranger who stayed behind to try and help the victim. Daniel was taken to hospital but was pronounced dead at 5:22 PM the same day. He was 22 years old. The Metropolitan Police began a murder investigation but soon ran out of leads. To this day, the case remains unsolved despite repeated public appeals by Daniel's family. Due to this killing, South Kilburn will now have intense beef with Kensal Green Boys, who sought out retribution. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Tank is the brother of Justo. Now, on the 4th of March 2007, Tank, real name Taino Kavuala, was in the car when he was shot multiple times by a Kensal Green Boy member at around 4:15 PM. The shooter then drove off towards Hammersmith, leaving Tank in his black Audi A3 near the junction of Harrow Road and Willesden Junction Station. Tank was pronounced dead at the scene, and his post-mortem gave the cause of death as multiple gunshot wounds. Despite the police reaching out to a large number of people during their investigation, many wouldn't give a statement. Tank's death would hit South Kilburn hard, especially his blood brother Justo.
I had to create Justo because the real me already died. Do you see what I'm saying? The real me died when that happened. On that day. So now when my brother dies, I completely die again.
Justo's gone.
Like, it's like I've gone back to the
emptiness.
Yeah, the dark place. Full of already the rage I had. On top of that rage, it just burned the heart in a different kind of way. Like, I didn't have no humanity. I didn't have no humanity at all. Like, I've done shit, yeah. Some people will think that I'm an evil person. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just talking real. You know what I mean? That's why I said, humble yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I've done shit that, like, you wouldn't want to sit in the same room as me, or people won't even look at me. They think you're, you know what I mean? Like the worstest person in the whole wide world.
But that's it's not weird stuff.
Now, Press Road boss Magic would be shot numerous times. He would survive the attempt on his life, but be left paralyzed. Allegedly, he was shot by C Biz, motivated by Magic taking his chain, as well as the death of his friend Tank. C Biz was a known gunman in the streets. He allegedly would shoot Church Road member Dewey, who was the older brother of Jazzy. Now, during the 2000s, American gangbanging culture would seep into the borough of Brent. The Blood vs Crip phase would emerge with South Kilburn flagging the colour blue alongside their affiliated gangs such as Chalk Hill and Stonebridge Park. But many more gangs would join in the alliance such as Monks Park, Ladbroke Grove, Lisson Green and other subsets all over the borough. They rivaled the rest of Brent such as St Raph's, Kensal Green, Willesden, North Wembley, North Kilburn, some parts of Harlesden, Press Road, Cricklewood and other areas outside of the borough such as Mozart Estate who all flagged red. See, colour banking got so bad that people were scared to wear anything red or blue when going out of their estates or areas, even if they weren't involved. People were getting shot, stabbed and assaulted because of red and blue clothing. This was when youth violence peaked in London. Say what you want about the youth of today, but the youth of the 2000s were worse. Even footballer Raheem Sterling, who grew up in St Raph's Estate, admitted he had to hide his football kit in case he would be targeted. Now, the death of his brother Tank would have a transforming effect on Justo. Ricks later mentions in many interviews that Justo turned so violent to the point members of his own gang stopped dealing with him as he was on crash out mode 24/7. The death of Tank hurt Ricks too, but this wasn't the first time he had lost a friend. He witnessed his friend Blugs die on Petland Road after being shot.
Shot my dog Blugs, you know. See Blugs dead on the floor right here, my dog. I don't even know. You must say looking like, what the fuck we doing? Yeah, my dog died right here. Right here somewhere. Rest in peace, Blugs, you know.
In 2007, about 500 officers took part in an operation raiding 20 addresses in the South Kilburn estate. Police said 15 men and 2 women had been arrested. 5 firearms, a silencer, and a large quantity of ammunition had been seized. 2 kilograms of cocaine and stolen items, including cars and credit cards, have also been recovered. Now, these arrests would usher in a new generation of gang members in South Kilburn, which included the likes of M. Lowe, Hurricane, Gucci, Young Tribes, Carlito and Bones. These guys had beef with HRB members from Mozart. Some of them attended St. Augustine's school together and were friends but inherited the beef of their elders. In the streets, C Biz would roll heavily with the likes of E1 and Richie Boo, E1 being from South Kilburn and Richie Boo being from Stonebridge. E1 and Richie Boo would be planning a revenge attack for the double murder of Stonebridge members Shorty and Ensman that happened in Tudor nightclub in 2002. One of the gunmen that took their friends that day was none other than Church Road member Zeno, who was the older brother of Nines. On the 25th of April 2008, Zeno and his cousin Inch went to Ike's barbershop to get their haircut. Now, the barbershop was very close to the Stonebridge Park estate. E1 and Richie Boo, along with their getaway driver, would make their way to the barber shop. When they got there, Zeno was brutally shot and killed while he was in the middle of his trim. Although what Zeno did was a good 6 years ago, it's a testament to the statement that revenge has no expiry date. Now, police came up short in their investigations until they arrested a getaway driver who turned snitch and agreed to testify against E1 and Richie Boo. The getaway driver was Aaron Bernard, who admitted driving E1 and co-accused Richie Boo from the scene and claims he had no idea that the duo were going to commit murder. Jurors heard that around a month after the killing, E1 called Mr. Bernard for a lift to Queensway Shopping Centre in Bayswater. He then said, which I took as a subliminal threat to me, if I hear that anybody's talking to the police, I'm going to get them. Now, both E1 and Richie Boo were found guilty of murder and sentenced to a minimum term of 30 years. Now, on the 21st of May 2010, in the early hours, Daniel Omari Smith, a 22-year-old electrician from Paddington, London, had just picked up a takeaway meal for his family from KFC when he was approached by an assailant and shot in the back. Despite efforts to save him, he succumbed to his injuries at the scene. The alleged shooter was none other than Justo. His target was Kensal Green member Slim, real name Stacey Theophane, a rival gang member who bore a striking resemblance to Daniel Omari Smith. This was a case of mistaken identity. The weapon used in Daniel's murder was also linked to other shootings in the West Midlands area. 3 men, including Justo, were later accused of shooting dead an innocent man in a botched revenge attack. Jurors heard how a YouTube video posted online with Justo, real name Kervin Kavawala, pointed to a tattoo of his dead brother while another person raps, "This all started when my brother died. It won't end till I see another homicide." During the trial, Justo claimed the shooting could not have been a revenge attack as he had always believed that the police had killed his brother. Prosecutors were unable to identify who fired the fatal shot. Now, jurors at the Old Bailey cleared Justo along with 2 others of murder after just 55 minutes deliberation.
Away shop in West London.
Best brother. He's the best friend in my life. Come to terms with losing my son, who did nobody any wrong.
In 2011, more raids continued. 250 police officers stormed homes in South Kilburn. 14 people were arrested after large quantities of crack cocaine, heroin, cannabis, and shoebox stuffed £7,000 in cash was found. The raids effectively ended the dominance of the older collective of South Kilburn members. On the 29th of September 2011, a teenage girl named Jessica Critchlow was shot with a shotgun all over her upper body as she cradled her 11-month-old baby. This was a joint ride-out by South Kilburn and Ladbroke Grove, aka LBG members. Jessica Critchlow suffered face, neck and chest injuries when a South Kilburn gang member, armed with a shotgun, fired into a crowd of young people on the rival Mozart estate. A year later, and South Kilburn members were at it again. On the 11th of September 2012, Mozart member Hersey would be shot in the chest twice on the Mozart estate by South Kilburn members. He was taken to hospital where his condition was initially described as life-threatening. However, he recovered later and was said to be in stable condition. Now, in May 2013, South Kilburn member BP was in a vehicle when police intercepted his journey, uncovering 6 firearms, including a handgun, a sawn-off shotgun, and a pump-action shotgun alongside ammunition. Additionally, a kilo of high-purity cocaine was found concealed in children's wrapper paper. Subsequent investigation linked BP to further drug-related activities, leading to his arrest and conviction. He received a 27-year prison sentence, comprising 15 years for conspiracy to supply controlled drugs, 8 years for possession of loaded firearms, and 4 years for possession of unloaded firearms, to be served consecutively. Now, while incarcerated, he was still in good spirits, flexing his Versace clothing and gold Rolex.
Nice to see you nice with your boy Big C, you dig? Check it out. That's the pinky. That's the bezel.
Shit.
And that's fully all around. It's not none of this all around.
Yeah.
That's the other. That's the other.
Ooh, that's a lot of ice.
That's the other.
That's a lot of ice.
Check out the chain.
Oh
Well,
shit. Oh shit.
Some white girls on it, I know I'm pissed myself, but it's icy though. Just please show them.
Sabrina Moss was a primary school teacher who lived in Kilburn. Now, despite being a primary school teacher, it was alleged she was or used to be a set-up girl. Now, I say alleged as it could be false. And it's also alleged she was friends with a lot of South Kilburn and Thugs of Stonebridge gang members. Now, in August 2013, around 10:30 PM, Sabrina was out celebrating her 24th birthday with friends in the Kilburn High Road area of London when one Kensal Green boy member, Enrico, along with two Wembley Fornia gang members in the car, were looking for South Kilburn members to attack. Once they saw a group, the two of them got out of the car and began opening fire with a submachine gun and shotgun. Their targets would be South Kilburn members in Edson and Soldier. Unfortunately, Sabrina Moss would be caught in the crossfire. After being shot, she was rushed to hospital in critical condition.
Friends and family of Sabrina Moss, the young mother who was shot on a night out in Kilburn, have gathered for her funeral. The 24-year-old nursery teacher was murdered a month ago as she celebrated her birthday. Police say she was an innocent bystander and have renewed their appeal for witnesses. Tara Welsh reports.
A small comfort to a mother facing what every parent dreads: burying her child.
The three men Enrico, real name Marto Warren, Hassan Hussein, and Yassin James were charged with the murder of Sabrina Moss. The evidence against them were the following: CCTV footage, forensic evidence, witness testimonies, phone records, vehicle evidence. The combination of this evidence led to the conviction of all three men. They were found guilty of murder and each received a life sentence with a minimum of 37 years before being eligible for parole. Now, on the 20th of November 2015, C Biz released the song The Game's Mine, which helps solidify C Biz's position of being a notable figure in UK rap. It had a lasting effect on his career, pushing him further into the spotlight. His ER movement would blow up, which stood for Eating Right, E being represented by the pound sign. He's seen in interviews seeing ER is meant to motivate and inspire everyone to get money. He says there's no excuse to being broke as a grown, able man, and it makes him sick, as you can see in this interview.
Is there any excuse to be broke?
No.
Nah.
You're an arsehole to be broke.
Why?
And you're a man. Maybe if you was a girl and something's wrong with you, yeah, it's all right. Or if you was a girl looking for a man, it's not still an excuse to be broke, because broke is just not part of ER.
Now, in early March 2016, C Biz would be robbed by a Mali from Church Road for his watch and chains. Soon after, Church Road rapper Nines would take it to social media by posting a video of him and his boys flexing C Biz valuables while saying, "Don't compare me to these dabbing ass rappers."
I told man don't be comparing man to these dabbing ass rappers, B. Tell your guy come get his fucking shit. Yo, fucking dead. This is the old version again. This ain't a new plate. Man's like, come get that beat. It's only 15 seconds, remember, plate.
It took Instagram and Twitter by storm. Taking a rapper's chain is like taking his honor. As expected, C Biz was insanely furious, and the public ridicule online only spurred him to seek revenge. On the 9th of March 2016, Oliver Tetlo was standing outside a shop on Church Road, Harlesden, northwest London. A blacked out hatchback pulled up, and a man, allegedly C Biz, would get out of the vehicle and open fire. 27-year-old Oliver Tetlo was shot multiple times at close range. After the shooting, the assailant quickly got back into the car, which then sped off. Oliver Tetlo had no involvement with any gangs, and his family described him as an innocent bystander who was tragically caught in the crossfire of a gang-related dispute. Now, the day after Oliver's death, C Biz got onto Twitter and had this to say: "4 were later arrested for his murder, one being C Biz. In January 2017, after a trial at the Old Bailey, all 4 defendants were acquitted due to insufficient evidence. Following the trial's collapse, C Biz stated that he was wrongly accused, attributing the allegations to false stories and social media speculation. On the 26th of May 2017, an innocent bystander in Mohanna Abdhou was fatally shot in Kilburn, northwest London, when 2 HRB gang members on bicycles opened fire. The bullet that struck her ricocheted off a wall, hitting Mohanna in the back and severing a major artery. She tragically died at the scene. It was later confirmed that she was not the intended target of the gunman. The case shocked the community, as Mohanna had been enjoying time with friends when the shooting occurred. Now, two men, Mohammed Tawfiq and Keelan Granham, were initially arrested and charged with murder. However, after a trial, both were acquitted due to insufficient evidence to directly link them to the crime. The case highlights the issues of gang violence and the danger faced by innocent people caught in such situations. In 2018, South Kilburn would usher in a new generation of youngers who went by SSK, which stood for Southside Killy. A few members included Broday Ye, 18 Mish, 18 Clappo, etc. South Kilburn's war with Kensal Green boys would eventually end. Now, the younger generation of Southside Killy, who inherited the beef, still however had war with HRB from the Mozart estate, Crime Scene Boys from Church Road, Top 6 from North Kilburn and Warwick. South Kilburn's allies were still Stonebridge, Ladbroke Grove, Lisson Green. BP, who reps South Kilburn and has done many songs with C Biz, is originally from Lisson Green. Now, older South Kilburn members would set up a county line operation in Wiltshire. Young tribes would then be wanted on a warrant for conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine in Swindon. However, rather than turning himself in, he would flee to Dubai, where he stays comfortably till this day, releasing music and flexing. In 2019, an event occurred that added oil to an already raging fire. One day, Nines was driving around in his Porsche when he was spotted by Stonebridge members Mad Beej and AR. After they locked eyes, a car chase ensued, causing Nine to crash his car. After they caught up with Nines, AR stabbed Nines in the face. Stupidly, AR recorded himself chasing Nines, further incriminating himself. The footage was later used in the courtroom and he was later sentenced. For what happened to the face of Church Road, there would be serious consequences. Firstly, Church Road members would record themselves chasing down South Kilburn member CS and stabbing him up, leaving him on the floor as they mocked him on camera.
I need him! Oh, they're soaking him. I'm not even chilling. Look at that you know the thing. You know the thing. You know the thing. Suck your mum, you you got shanked up, you look at your back. Oh,
On the 5th of July 2019, on Harrow Road, Monks Park, Stonebridge member and friend of K Coke, Smalls, real name Craig Smalls, was gunned down. The shooting was caught on CCTV. The shooter crept up close on an unaware Smalls standing outside a chicken shop, who was shot at point blank range. And when it looked like the shooter was fleeing, he came back to shoot again while Smalls was lying on the floor. However, the shooter was not done riding. Moments later, he spotted Chalk Hill Boys member Big French sitting in a white car. He approached him from the front windshield and attempted to shoot him, but his gun jammed. Instantly, Big French would then get out of his car and escape with his life. Church Road members Jazzy and Scraps were arrested shortly after by the police. Jazzy was later found guilty of murder and sentenced to 35 years, while Scraps was found guilty of perverting the course of justice and sentenced to 4.5 years. Even behind bars, they were not safe from retaliation. South Kilburn member Miniman would allegedly give orders and Scraps would be stabbed in the neck in prison, almost losing his life. Now in 2020, many CSB members were released from prison and held a block party to celebrate. Now a Stonebridge gang member, part of the SOS set in Stonebridge, which stood for Shoot on Sight, would get intel of the party and ruin the fun. SOS member Crashcorn would slide. He spotted a CSB member along with his family and didn't hesitate to shoot. The CSB member was shot in the arm, his wife was shot 5 times in the chest, and the most heinous crime of them all, the 2-year-old was shot in the head. Fortunately, all survived but had life-changing injuries. Crashcorn would later be charged for triple attempted murder, but to everyone's surprise, he would manage to beat the case due to insufficient evidence. Now it's one thing being shot, but to have your wife and 2-year-old shot is a different level of pain and anger that I can't imagine. So for what Crashcorn did, his father was executed in Jamaica. Stonebridge members would hold a vigil for the father of Crashcorn in Ends. HRB member Billy the Kid, who recently got out of jail, would gain intel on this vigil happening and prepare an attack. However, before he put things into motion, he got a call letting him know his friend Arms was stabbed to death. Arms was a Warwick gang member and affiliate of HRB. Tragically, he lost his life after being stabbed in the early hours of July 15th, 2020. Now Billy the Kid, who was already planning to crash the vigil being held by Stonebridge members, now had even more of a reason to. Despite Stonebridge having nothing to do with Arms' death, they were affiliated with Listen Green, who were responsible for his death, and that was enough. Upon hearing the news, Billy went to St. Raph's estate to round up 4 members, 2 of them being Bizzle and Gritty. They would get in the car with Billy and travel to the vigil to carry out a drive-by shooting. However, before they could reach the destination, they were spotted by Monks Park members who let their Stonebridge affiliates know. This allowed the Stonebridge members to be armed and ready. When they finally got to the vigil, Billy the Kid got out and opened fire indiscriminately, but missed. The Stonebridge members fired back and struck Billy twice in the back. Then multiple gunshots were being fired at the same time, resulting in one of the St. Raph members being shot in the leg, forcing them to drive off while Billy was hit and on the floor. People claimed they left Billy for dead, but they had no other choice. Bullets were flying. It was so chaotic that one Stonebridge member accidentally shot another in the arm. Members of the public recorded a video of Billy's body as paramedics were trying to resuscitate him, but it was later taken off the internet. Billy was shot a total of 6 times. A week later, and on the 22nd of July 2020, South Kilburn rappers M Low and Fibs would drop the song titled No One. Lyrically, they spent the majority of the track insulting Billy's death. It was a very rude one. Now 3 of Billy's friends who rode out with him that night would be charged for his murder. You heard that right, police couldn't find the Stonebridge members who killed Billy, so charged his friends in a legal first. See, this legal doctrine allows individuals to be held criminally liable for a crime committed by another person if they participated in the crime or played a role in its commission, even if they did not directly carry out the act itself. In Billy's case, despite the fact that his friends, Saeed, Yusuf and Mensa did not fire any of the shots that hit him, they were still convicted because they were part of the group that initiated the violent confrontation. The prosecution argued that by engaging in a planned retaliatory shooting, they shared the intent and responsibility for the outcome, including Billy's death. Now, Izza Saeed was sentenced to a minimum of 28 years before being eligible for parole. Adel Yusuf was sentenced to a minimum of 27 years before being eligible for parole. And finally, Daniel Mensah was sentenced to a minimum of 26 years before being eligible for parole. Now, it's one thing to lose a friend while you are actively trying to get revenge for another friend you lost a day ago, but now you are doing football numbers behind bars while your friend's real killers are free. I don't think I've seen anyone take a bigger L in the streets than. Now you may be wondering, how does this all relate to South Kilburn? Well, for the murder of Billy, HRB Mozart members would target South Kilburn as revenge. Again, despite them having nothing to do with it, their affiliation with Stonebridge and old age beef with Mozart was enough. So on the 12th of August 2020 at approximately 12:20 AM, South Kilburn member Gucci, real name Jeffrey Wegby, was tragically shot outside his home in Hanzo Road, Kilburn. Despite efforts of emergency services, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Now in the days following his death, 2 men aged 27 and 36 were arrested on suspicion of murder, but were subsequently released under investigation. One of these men was Broad Day, who was very close with Billy the Kid and was an active gang member, which is a set located in Agar Grove, Camden. Rumours it was a paid hit by Fredo. This comes from the fact Fredo was seen on Instagram arguing with South Kilburn member Seth, telling him to get back for his boy, while Seth replies, "We don't pay nobody to do drillings." Now Sven Badzak was an aspiring lawyer. He was from Maida Vale, which is the same territory as some HRB members. It is believed by many that Sven was no gang member, he merely grew up in the same area and knew some of the members. This picture of him with Ratland would unfortunately later make him a target. On the evening of the 6th of February 2021, Sven and his 16-year-old friend had visited Waitrose supermarket and were returning home when they were approached by a group of 6 men. The group included Southside Killing members Broad Day Ye and Shocks, who attacked the pair. The attack was swift and brutal. Sven was stabbed in the chest and after collapsing was further assaulted by the group. His friend was also stabbed but managed to seek help at a nearby Tesco store. Despite paramedic efforts, Sven succumbed to his injuries at the scene. Following an extensive investigation, Broadday Ye and Shocks were convicted of murder and wounding with intent. They were each sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 27 years. Also, Southside Killy member Little H, real name Harvey Canavan, pleaded guilty to manslaughter and unlawful wounding and received a sentence of 7.5 years for manslaughter. Now on the 19th of July 2022, HRB members were having a block party. Their enemies would get the drop. A South Kilburn gang member would be the driver while the gunman would be a Ladbroke Grove gang member. Despite the rumours, he wasn't a CGM member, but rather from the older sets within Ladbroke Grove. They sought out blood as revenge for what happened to Gucci. Now Wu, who was the older brother of Little Dots, would be shot outside a block of flats in Queen's Park, West London. There's even a video of his friends carrying him and driving him to hospital, where he was shortly pronounced dead. Now a post-mortem examination confirmed he died from a gunshot wound to the heart and he had also been shot in the back. There's an eerie video of Wu online where he's on camera saying, "I'm like Reese Money, see my hitters they come quick."
I'm like Reese Money, see my hitters they come quick. So you might be out for a week.
It was like he was foreshadowing the revenge his HRB members were going to get for his death, and he wasn't lying about them being quick. Not even a month passed after Wu's death, and South Kilburn were fatally struck again. On the 4th of September 2022, police rushed to reports of gunshots in West London at 2:02 AM. What they discovered was a man believed to be in his 20s who had suffered gunshot wounds. Now that man was none other than South Kilburn rapper M. Lo, real name Maximilian Kusio Russo. He was given medical assistance at the scene and rushed to hospital, but was tragically pronounced dead at 5:32 AM. HRB rapper Fredo would go and snap and post this. In other words, half the job was done. The other half involved Wu's murder was Ladbroke Grove. Now this brings me to the end of this video. For the uncensored version of this video, subscribe to my Patreon. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Till the next time.